put it in a consolidated fund and just use it. We don't do that anymore. It is now being invested. What happened that as they keep on, people started retiring and they started to pay out these pensions. They realized that after a while, the entire budget will be going to pay pensions. Right? That's what they realized. So they said, this can't go on. So what they did, they said, you know what? They passed a law and said every working person must end up with an individual retirement account. Then just like what you're doing here, we approved certain people to carry the accounts. And they were clever though, because I think Chile was sort of a dictatorship one time, or very militaristic. So on the day when the law came in, they tell every employer to raise everybody pay by 10%. And then say everybody must pay 10% of their pay into the scheme. So most people thought, well, all right, so we get a 10% increase and we have to pay 10%. Let us not have a war here. Let's do it. So they did it. And some of the results I can tell you. When that happened, the interest rate in Chile was like 35%. Within 5 years to 10 years, it was down to 5%. The law at first said you couldn't invest any other money outside of Chile. Within 5 to 10 years, they were investing over 30% outside of Chile. They couldn't manage it. Because what happened when they did that, and all the population keep on paying this 10%, can you imagine the pool of funds that is created? Can you imagine that happening to Jamaica right now? Huh? Just keep on imagining it. Keep on imagining it. Eh? All the government borrowing money at 12.5% now, which is by force and fiat. If you had something like that, we'll be begging them to borrow the money from us at 5%. Right? You know much schools, hospitals, infrastructure. And this is the beauty about long-term savings, you know. It benefits the individual 2 ways. One, yes, I save some of my money. But 2, it provides so much infrastructure in the country. Cut down crime, cut down this, cut down that. So you feel so good you don't even need no pension. You're just living here. So basically, I believe we need to get that legislation. And all I would say in the legislation, every working individual must belong to a pension scheme. Argument done. You don't have to say anything more than that. Right? And some people believe you couldn't enforce it. Mr. Obama just brought in compulsory health care. You know what's the penalty if you don't buy a health plan? Nothing. It's nothing. The law says you should have it. But don't go around arresting people because they don't have it. What you hope is that with time, people will comply. Like you comply. And remember, you know, it's just like your computer or your phone that you have. You don't know how to use the phone. Your 5-year-old child take up the phone and play every game and phone all Egypt and Ireland. And you have to pay the bill. And you can't do it because they were born into it. So it's no big thing. That's what happened to seatbelt when they brought the seatbelt law. You know how I wear seatbelt? I've never worn a seatbelt before. And I said, I'm not wearing it, they have to arrest me. Every morning I went to that car to drop my children to school. But don't say, Daddy, you don't have on your seatbelt. Daddy, you don't have on your seatbelt. After a while, seatbelt go on every day. That's how legislation works sometimes. So I believe very strongly about that law. And also preservation. And I know that in the second phase, Ms. Hennes should be coming up with that. But it's so important. Sometimes we mix up preservation with portability. It's two different things. Portability, port, transport, to move, the ability to move something from one place to the next. There is nothing in the law right now that prevents you from doing it. And a lot of people do it. You can move your monies from one pension scheme to the next. But you're still doing it, you know. When you leave, you port it because you move it from the pension scheme to your pocket. That's what you do. So it's still portability. But we don't like that. We want to move from one pension scheme to another pension scheme. Now that's where preservation now plays a part. Because what preservation says, you can move it, but it cannot go to your pocket. It must go to another pension scheme. So that's where preservation comes in. And this is very important because a lot of us in Jamaica, we like to go Mandeville at Ingleside. We see ordinary Jamaicans who spend years in England and they come and build these beautiful houses and you wonder how they work so much money. Well, one of the reasons, I'm not saying all, in England, when you change your job, you cannot touch your pension. So when they retire, them get pounds that represent 40 years of working life. It's not just the size of the pound why they can do it. It's because their pension is based on all of them working life. What we have here now is that your pension is based on the last segment of your working life. So if you are a very mobile person and your last job was at age 60, so when you reach 65 and you ask for your pension, you realize you cannot pay a light bill. And you start to cost everybody how long you have been working, and imagine how a good worker you were. And now look what you get for your pension. You get the point? But whose fault it is? Your fault. Right? And to a certain extent, the government's fault. Because they should have preservation. You know why? Because the government gives so much subsidy to an approved pension plan that they have a right to lay down certain rules. Of course, if you don't want to obey those rules, go and set up your own non-approved pension plan. But remember, when you set up that, it's 40% more you're paying for it. And if your mother's sick tonight, and she said need 10 million for the operation, you don't have no choice. You have to take 10 million and look after her, which is a good thing. But it also means you're not going to have no pension. So those are some of the things you have to look at. Sharing of the cost. Well, no, sometimes it's best if you are protected from yourself. Because if I have my money in a pension scheme, and my brother need money and say I want to borrow it, I'm not saying I won't lend him. But it's not the pension money he's getting. That's the point I'm making. It is still there after I lend him. My pension money is still there because I can't touch it. So it's very important. Sharing of costs. This is another thing with group schemes which I always don't understand with employers. Employers, to me, they duck the issue. The issue is this. A pension is very important, and a good quality pension, a BIMA pension, is critically important. Now, the costs have to be shared. What the employers tend to do is just say, okay, the employee pay 5% and me not pay more than 5%. And then you get a ladder. Now, suppose you present the thing properly to the employees. The two pictures, ladder and BIMA, and the total cost. And then you say, boy, if you want a BIMA, then it has to be a 50-50 cost or a 75-25. You get the point? People will not necessarily say no, you know, if you point out to them what they are going to get. Right? And if you convince them that they will live to see retirement. Because when a man tells me say I'm not living to see retirement, the first question I ask him, he must give me the date. And he say, what date? Me say the day when you're going to die, because I want to put it down to come to your funeral. And if he say, don't know, I said, then how you know you're not living to 65? If you don't know when you're going to die, how come you know you're not living to 65? That don't make no sense to me. You have to know when you're going to die, if you know you're not living to 65. So, you know, you have to learn these little things when you're talking to people about pension, because, believe you me, they will use anything at all to tell you why pension don't make any sense. Okay, I'm going to do the last part now, which I was asked definite that I should do. Options at retirement. You reach retirement age. You're supposed to get a pension. And you notice that you don't see any word up there called pension. You see a word called annuity. Well, what is an annuity? An annuity is a regular annual series of payments, but which may be made at any frequency. In other words, if I tell you I will pay you $1,200 a year, but monthly, it means you get $100 every month. If I tell you I'll pay you $1,200 a year, but semi-annually, it means that you get $600 every 6 months. So that's what an annuity is. Now, everybody will get pension. Well, how do they get it? Monthly. So a pension is an annuity. But an annuity is not necessarily a pension. You get the point? So a pension is a subset of the set of annuities. Right? But not the other way around. I always use my mathematics and I teach everywhere. Okay. So basically, that is the thing about the pension. The pension comes in the form of an annuity. Now, we have what we call traditional annuities. And I'm going to just do two of them very quickly. Traditional annuities, what they do is that they pay the amount for a period certain and life thereafter. Don't panic. I'm coming to you. What do we mean? You could choose that you want to get your pension for 5 years certain and life thereafter. What does that mean? It means if you die after 1 month, 59 months of the pension must be paid to your beneficiary, because it said for